Hi everybody, this is SAAD. I was sitting watching the Saints play the 49ers, relaxing, having a good Sunday afternoon after returning from watching my daughter play soccer where her team won 1-0 and my daughter scored the only goal. I went to my Twitter feed, bad idea, and I came across some tweets that were discussing a recent intersectional article, and here I am doing a SAAD Truth. So this is an article by Shanda Prescott Weinstein. She is, at least on Wikipedia, she is a woman of color. She's a queer scientist, and she is a gender. So all of her intersectionality markers are there as part of her biography. I don't put, when I introduce myself, that I am the first Lebanese Jewish heterosexual consumer psychologist who applies evolutionary psychology. The fact that I'm Lebanese Jewish, the fact that I'm extremely good looking, the fact that I'm the greatest soccer player, the fact that I am heterosexual has nothing to do with my professional accomplishments. But for this person, everything is viewed through the lens of intersectionality. And she's a physicist. Some of you know of the condition that I've coined a while ago now, ostrich parasitic syndrome, which is a pathological denial of reality via being parasitized by various idea pathogens. It constitutes an important part of my forthcoming book. Many people have asked me in the past, are you implying that OPS, ostrich parasitic syndrome, is something that only afflicts people on the left? And the answer is no. Or are you implying that only dumb people could be infected with OPS? Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, here's a supposed physicist, so you would think, she's smart, who is fully infected, rabidly infected with OPS. So let me read for you. By the way, her supervisor at the University of Waterloo was Lee Smolin, who happens to be a former guest of mine on the show. Lee Smolin has posited a very interesting theory regarding the application of an evolutionary mechanism, so a form of natural selection at the cosmological level. Very, very interesting idea. In any case, you can go back and watch my chat with Lee Smolin. So, sorry, Lee, for critiquing here one of your former students, but this is an article that came out from Dr. Prescott Weinstein just recently in Signs, a journal of women in culture and society, published by the University of Chicago Press. It's simply unbelievable. I tried to actually read through the whole thing. I could only get through about the first 2 or 3 paragraphs because it truly seems like it is a satire straight out of the Grievance Studies project. So here we go. Making black women scientists under white empiricism. The racialization of epistemology in physics. In this article, I take on the question of how the exclusion of black American women from physics impacts physics epistemologies, and I highlight the dynamic relationship between this exclusion and the struggle for women to reconcile, quote, black woman with, quote, physicist. I describe the phenomenon where white epistemic claims about science, which are not rooted in empirical evidence, receive more credence and attention than black women's epistemic claims about their own lives. To develop this idea, I apply an intersectional analysis to Joseph Martin's concept of prestige asymmetry in physics, developing the concept of white empiricism to discuss the impact that black women's exclusion has had on physics epistemology. By considering the essentialization of racism and sexism alongside the social construction of ascribed identities, I assess the way black women physicists self-construct as scientists and the subsequent impact of epistemic outcomes on the science itself. This is the abstract. I could start reading for you the rest of the article, but it's simply impossible. I will put a link to the article in the description section and you can have fun reading it. I would suggest that you maybe drop some acid before doing so. It is simply unimaginable to think that in the 21st century, a professor of physics is writing such garbage. It is simply impossible. There is no white epistemology. There is no black epistemology. There is no feminist epistemology. There is no Orthodox Jew epistemology. What makes the scientific method is that it liberates us from the constraints of our personal identities. One could argue that, hey, people within certain groups were at some point in history denied equal opportunities to enter particular areas of intellectual pursuits. And that's absolutely true. But to talk about white empiricism and white epistemology and the rest of the nonsense that you can find in this article is an affront to human reason. It is an affront to human dignity. It is an affront to the scientific method. This person is more concerned about celebrating her personal identifying markers. She is queer and a gender and a person of color and Jewish descent. Nobody cares about those identities. Do good science, do good physics, and you will summit the mountain. By the way, not to denigrate, but I went to look at this physicist's Google Scholar profile. She obtained her PhD in 2011, so this is 8 years ago now, almost 9 years ago. And her H index is 8. I have doctoral students. I know of many doctoral students, and I can think of a few of my own who, coming out of their PhDs, they had a record of scientific productivity that matched that of this scholar. Surely she's probably going to argue it's because the scientific enterprise is homophobic. They are LGBTQ phobic. They are phobic against Jewish people, or maybe phobic against her being a, quote, woman of color. Well, Thomas Sowell is a person of color. He seems to have done pretty well in his life. Stop with this identity stuff. It's enough already. At no time throughout human history have all people from all persuasions, all orientations, all colors been more free than that which we are experiencing today. Does this mean that there is no bigotry around? Of course there is still bigotry, but it's not institutional, it's not systemic. Spend less time succumbing to collective Munchausen and more time doing physics. What an execrable enemy of reason. I despise such garbage. Have a good day, everybody.